Hey there, it's Michelle Spiva, and I am coming to you today with day number 13. 13, yes, 13 of my Leader of One self-leadership project. This is the preparatory month, getting ready to have a booming 2018. So if you're joining me, if you're going along with me, you do know that we are in the midst of our week number 2, which is all about commitment. And right now, if you are doing this along with me, your commitment is being tested every second. Yes. So today I'm talking about this, and I want to ask you a question. Are you able? Do you have the collateral, the clout, the bank account, the savings? Do you have what it takes to pay for the expense of action? You see, I'm having to ask myself that today. And before I move on, I want to give a shout out, because one of my family members reminded me, they're like, I know you're reading books. Why are you not telling us about the books you're reading? So let me give a shout out to my bibliophilic sister who reminded me to give shout outs about the books I'm reading. And I actually did this part as a shout out because this is part of where I am. There is a short book. I mean, anybody can read it in about an hour. And it is called The Spy's Guide to Thinking by John Braddock. And I'm going to put the link in the post so you can pick it up. You can get it Kindle Unlimited. For if you have that, you can just read it. Or I think it's like $3. So it's really good. It's really short. And I'm giving a shout out to John because we approach things the same way. We just maybe call them different things. But one of the things that I like and how succinctly he put it is action is expensive. Now, I have been saying the same thing. I have been going through the same thing. And it's funny because in his book, he says, the reason why action is so expensive, I'm paraphrasing here, is because actions are a commitment. Did you catch that? And this is what we're on. We're on week number 2, which is commitment. And because it is a commitment, that means an action, unlike your research, unlike getting your data analyzed and coming up with an observation, and even coming up with a decision. When you pull the trigger of action, it is now, guess what? Irreversible. So the other day I talked about the difference between a choice and a decision. And for me, this is a decision. Even the word decision has side in it, C-I-D-E, which means to murder, to cut, to stop. And that means that you have separated everything else. You are only able to go this way. And so when you make a decision, it pops action. So much so that research even says that your body, that vagus nerve down in the gut, that second brain, overrides the logic brain to get you ready to move because decision is attached to action. But the problem is that action is expensive. And it is expensive because true action involves commitment, which is do or die, ride. There is no turning back. You got to keep going forward. You got to keep your momentum, and you got to keep doing it. Yesterday, I talked about fighting for it. And so this is what we're talking about. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is where it ain't fun no more. This is not cute no more. This is not it's a good idea. No, this is in the thick of it because you said you would do it. I said I would do it. And so we're doing it. I always look at the things that I want or the things that I maybe have accomplished. And I try to possibly get a good idea of what the investment is going to take. In a previous one of these, I talked about counting up the cost before you get started. And it's because of times like this, when you don't have anybody cheering. I have this analogy, and I try to share it with my precious babies, my nieces, nephews, anybody who will listen to me, even my coaching clients sometimes when they want to throw up their hands. And I even have to remind myself about that. And that is, don't be a 26 miler. And I get that analogy from a marathon, which is 26.2 miles. And I'm not talking about the person who has been running the marathon. I'm talking about the person who you see somebody trying to do something, and when they first start out, either you're like, oh, that's cute, or but then they keep running, and you're not there for the whole race. You're not watching them, but then you notice they still doing this. It's mile 11. They haven't given this up. Oh, bless their little heart. And then you notice mile 18. Oh, wait, what? They starting to pick up traction. It looks like they're going to win at this. And then you start getting interested in about mile 23. And then you start getting on the sidelines and cheering them on and say, oh, go. And then by mile 26, when you can look down at that 0.2 miles and see the end, see the finish line, then you want to jump in and say, can I run with you for this last, this last part? Or even some people want to jump on their back and say, oh, can you help me? Can you do this? And they want to go through the finish line with the person who's been running all along. Now, I want to say, when I say don't be the 26 miler, I'm talking about the person who jumps in at the 26th mile because you can see where somebody is going. Instead, I want you to be the runner. I want you to be the one, and I want you to understand that this is normal. Anybody who has decided to do anything of real change, you're going to have about 23 good miles where nobody is paying you any attention, where nobody cares what you're doing, but you better still be running. And so that's where we are right now. That's why I say action is expensive. Thinking is cheap. Anybody can think up something. Anybody can say, I have a good idea. But it's that action that's expensive, because when you put something into action, there's no turning back. You got to do it. Now, this is the other thing that I want to really talk about today, because I'm in the thick of it. Some of you that are out there with me, who started with me, bless your hearts. You may have fallen off to the side. I'm going to ask you to come on back. Don't be a 26 miler. Get in there and run your race. I'm gonna say, welcome you back into the fold and say it's not too late. Keep going. And I'm also going to say this, and that is, even with count up the costs, even with making the decision, even with starting to do the action, I don't want you to get caught in a rookie mistake, which is paying an expensive price for action that is busy work. I've been guilty of it. I might be guilty of it again in the future, but I want to make sure that we understand, just because you're doing stuff does not mean that it is proper action. It could be fake action. It could be appeasement to make you feel like you're doing something. So how do you know if you're doing fake action? Well, if you're not getting anything accomplished, if you're not getting small wins, if you're not making advancement, if you're not getting better in your skill, if you're not getting any closer to what you said you were going to get done, it's fake action. It's appeasement. It's to make you feel better. So what's the antidote for that? Well, for me personally, like I said, this is about my self-leadership as well, letting you guys see what I'm doing. It's also about becoming, for me, a more refined, a better tactician, because when you're going to enact a plan, when you're going to put action to something, it's already expensive. You're already in it. So why not have the best plan that you can with the resources you have at that time? And that means you got to become a tactician. Now, what is a tactician? A lot of times they use that in reference to military or corporate strategy and all of this kind of stuff. But you can actually be a good tactician of your life. A tactician is someone who is clever in maneuvering a plan or plans. See, that's the thing. A tactician is a grand strategist. They are a person that understands that not only must I think this through, I must have contingency plans. I must mitigate against loss. I must have a succession plan if I can't finish this. There are so many different things that you take into account when you become a tactician. And thus, action is expensive. Because when you start putting action to what you said you were going to do, and you want to do it the best way possible, preaching to self right now. Get you some tactics and some strategies that work. Get you some fallback plans that work. Don't get out there and be swimming around in a circle. I love this app, and it's called Curiosity. If you go to curiosity.com, you can download this app, and what it does is each time you open up your browser, it'll give you a new little fun fact. And one of the fun facts I like that I read was, given to our own devices based on our orientation to the earth, we naturally walk in circles. So if you ever get lost and you don't have a compass, left to your own devices, you will walk in circles. It just is what it is. And I was like, wow. And so I kind of use it as a metaphor for myself when I'm doing action. I'm like, I don't want to be walking in circles when I'm supposed to be going in lines from start to finish, And I mean, I could say a lot about circles, circles of life, cycles and all this kind of stuff. But when you're trying to get something done, that's a straight line. And you need to plan for it. You need to have a navigation and all of that. So because action is so expensive, one of the big takeaways I'm going to say is that when we are looking at what we need to do, number one, don't lose the game. You got to play this action where there is the book talks about zero sum. There's got to be a winner and a loser, and you need to be the winner. Don't lose the game. Number two, don't waste time. Number three, be clever in your maneuverings. And number four, don't leave things up to chance. I mean, chance is always a factor, but plan out on the go. So, for instance, I have some meetings and things I got to do later today, and I'm taking advantage of this time because one of my meetings that I was supposed to have right now is not happening, which is going to give me a little more time to get ready for the next meeting. But because I'm gaining that, I've already planned out some of the stuff that I'm going to get ahead of for tomorrow. And to me, that's me implementing the muscle that I need to always be working on being a good tactician. I thought about talking about games today, but I might talk about that later because I still need to talk about time. And I'll just say this. With games, we're playing them whether we want to or not. There's this other book called Finite and Infinite Games, and I don't have the author's name right now, but I had to read it in one of my academic classes, and it was like one of the best books because it explained so much. And just the quick on that, and then I gotta go, is that there are finite games where there are winners and losers, the kind of stuff we're doing right now. And then there are infinite games where there is no winner. The whole object of the game is to keep the game going. And you know what the biggest infinite game is? Life, followed by quality of life. So when we look at what we're doing in Leader of One project, for the most part, we are playing the infinite game of sustaining life and then hopefully making the quality of our sustained life as healthy, prosperous, abundant, adventurous, exciting, peaceful, joyful as possible. And then under that, the finite game that we're playing is to move to a certain level of existence that we are not currently in, that we wish to be in, so that we can enjoy what that level of accomplishment, what producing that brings. So I know I crammed a lot into this today, but let me do a quick little recap. The book that I want to highlight today is A Spy's Guide to Thinking by John Braddock. You can get it on Amazon for $2.99, or if you have a Kindle Unlimited subscription, you can read that as part of your subscription. It's short. You can read it in under an hour. The next thing I want to say is because of our commitment, when you take an action, is what makes the activity, the action, so expensive because it's now irreversible. You're in it to win it. But the next thing is we want to be clever. We want to do this the right way so we're not swimming in circles and wasting our time. So we want to become great tacticians, strategists, where we are able to develop and hone our skill of being clever in our maneuvering, so that we not only have this plan, we got fallback plans, we've got mitigation of risks plans, succession plans, whatever we need to keep going and to keep getting what we need to get. And so, with that being said, I want to ask you again, do you have what it takes to pay the price of what action requires? If not, I'm going to just quickly say this. I'm going to go and ask you, please, because I see a lot of people who are on both sides. People who have analysis paralysis, where they keep gathering data and they never pull the trigger of action. Then I see people who don't get no data, don't form any kind of idea of what they want. They just go off. And so they swimming around in circles, wasting time. And the people that are gathering data are just going in circles, wasting time. So for us, because we are moving forward, and this is, yes, we acknowledge that action is expensive, but we're willing to pay the price because we're willing to do what we need to. And so with that, if this is conviction, like, oh, I've been doing a lot of stuff and not getting a lot of stuff done, I'm going to ask you to do something real quick for me. If you just go back, and I don't want to call out the specific days, but go back and look at your reasons and whys for what you're doing. Look at the brain dumps that we talked about before and decide really hard what you don't want. Then go and look at your feedback that you're getting and the vision you have created and how you're going about your deliberate practice. And what all this is going to do is it's going to give you something of a hypothesis of, if I do this, then I will have that. That is the simple format of a good hypothesis. And another shout out to that book is what I liked is I learned this and I took it for granted. Part of the scientific method. Scientific method is you develop a hypothesis. Then after you develop that hypothesis, you start to test it out. Then after you test it out, you look at the outcome and then you make a decision. Now, because I knew this, I didn't realize I might have needed to state this, that when you are going to do something, form your hypothesis. An hypothesis is set up as an if-then statement. If I change this, if I become that, if I acquire this, if I know that, if I put this together, then I will have blah, 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 blah. Do that. If you have found that you're not meeting the standard of what you said you would do, is hard. It seems like you're directionless. You don't have the motivation or the willpower or whatever it is to go on this journey of taking care of what you said you wanted to do. Start there. Make sure you have a strong hypothesis that you're trying to prove. Then once you get through and you start deciding, ooh, I've been running around in circles, wasting time, paralysis analysis, or just running off half cocked. The next thing I want you to do is I want you to take that new data and I want you to change it. Because we talked about that the other day, about once you get feedback, adjusting your vision so that you can be more succinct and streamlined on what you're doing. Now, I'm talking to self too, because trust and know, I have been having to do this daily. You know, this is a journey you're coming on with me, so I'm preaching to myself as much as I am to you. And, you know, I'm looking at the time here. I've talked a little bit too long, but I invite you to do that. So no, yes, thinking is cheap. It's that action that's expensive. Do you have the price? Do you have the money for or the resources, I want to say, to pay the price? I hope you do. If you don't, take these words to heed. Start with a good hypothesis. Test that thing out. When you get your data back, be willing and strong enough to change up your tactics. Become a strong tactician with clever maneuverings to get something done. If one way don't work, then another one needs to step in. So y'all, it's time to step up our game. Step it up. Okay? We are on day 13. That means we have 17 days left of this stage. We should be moving into, because next week in a few days, we're going to be moving into, are you ready? We're going to be moving into concentration. And I'm going to tell you, it's hard to concentrate when you're still trying to figure out, what the heck am I doing? All right, so let's get the lesson. Let's get this done. Come on, chop, 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 my people. I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm excited. We're in the midst. We're in the commitment. We are in the action. Pay the price. Pay the price. Do what you need to. All right. Woo. I guess I am really pumped. So thank you all so much for those of you who are on this journey with me, and those of you who are going to see this and get inspired to do it. I will see you tomorrow. This has been Michelle Spiva, leader of One. If you want to join the group, link is in the description. If you want to be a sponsor, link is in the description. I'm going to drop the link to that book for The Spy's Guide to Thinking, and I'll see y'all tomorrow. Bye.